Ladies and gentlemen, let me teach you a truth that has shifted entire destinies, built empires from dust, and transformed ordinary lives into extraordinary legacies. And that truth is this: what you focus on, you attract. See, your focus is not just what you look at, it's what you look through. It's the lens that shapes your life. Most people don't understand that focus is a form of faith. When you focus on fear, you're believing in the power of your problems. When you focus on your vision, you're believing in the power of your future. Most people don't understand that focus is not just something you do with your eyes. It's something you do with your mind, your spirit, and your energy. Focus is attention with intention. It's a discipline, a force multiplier, and one of the greatest assets you have if you want to change your results in life. You see, in the same way a magnifying glass can take the scattered rays of the sun and ignite a fire when pointed at a single leaf, your mind, when focused, has the power to set your life on fire with purpose and productivity. You must understand this principle: whatever you focus on expands. This is not just a motivational slogan. This is a spiritual law, a mental law, and even a scientific one. It's rooted in how your brain works. Your subconscious mind is constantly filtering out millions of bits of information every second. How does it decide what to filter in and what to filter out? By what you're focused on. If you're focused on negativity, your brain will show you more things to be negative about. If you're focused on opportunity, your mind will begin spotting opportunities you would have missed before. This is why some people live in the same world, with the same economy, the same environment, the same challenges, but experience a completely different outcome. One person sees limitation, another sees potential. One person sees a crisis, another sees a calling. What's the difference? It's not the conditions, it's their focus. Now let's go deeper. Focus creates clarity, and clarity is power. See, when you lack clarity, your energy is scattered, your time is wasted, your emotions are pulled in different directions, and because you don't know what to say yes to, you say yes to the wrong things, and that yes becomes the reason for your stress. But when you're focused, your clarity goes up, and so does your confidence. You start walking with intention. You're no longer moving through life reacting. Now you're responding. Now you're creating. Here's something else most people don't realize. Focus is not neutral. It's directional. It either pulls you forward into purpose or pushes you backward into distraction. That's why distractions are so dangerous. Distractions don't show up as problems. They show up as options. And if you don't guard your focus, life will waste your time and call it normal. People will give you their agenda and call it an opportunity. But your destiny cannot afford divided attention. Listen, what you don't focus on, you forfeit. You can't become wealthy if you're focused on lack. You can't build something meaningful if you're constantly comparing yourself to other people. And you certainly can't be faithful to your assignment if your attention is being pulled by every notification, every opinion, and every problem that's not even yours to fix. That's why your focus must be filtered through your calling. Ask yourself daily, does this deserve my attention? Is this part of my assignment? Will this take me closer to my vision? Because if it doesn't, it's not a priority, it's a distraction, and distractions are destiny killers. Now, hear this. The reason some people seem lucky isn't luck, it's focus. They've trained their mind to look for what they want instead of what they don't want. They've learned to ignore the noise and follow the signal. They've made their focus their filter, and as a result, their life begins attracting the outcomes that align with that focused belief. So if you want better results, stop trying to change everything around you and start changing your focus. Because at the end of the day, your life is simply a reflection of the things you've been paying the most attention to. And if you change your focus, you change your life. Your mind is not just a brain. It's not just a biological organ. It is a seedbed, a spiritual and mental soil where every thought you entertain is a seed, and every belief you nurture is a tree in the making. That means you're never just thinking, you are planting. You're always planting something. The question is, what are you planting and what are you expecting to harvest? Most people are living in a harvest they didn't realize they planted. They look at their life and wonder, why am I constantly struggling? Why am I always broke? Why do I keep attracting the same kinds of toxic relationships? And the answer is simple. You've been planting the same kinds of thoughts, watering them with attention, feeding them with emotion, and now they've taken root and become patterns. And patterns become problems when left unchecked. See, your thoughts are not harmless. They are creative. The word says, "Be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." That's not just about money or deeds. It applies to thoughts. If you sow bitterness, you will reap brokenness. If you sow gratitude, you will reap peace. If you sow limitation, you will reap lack. If you sow possibility, you will reap progress. That's the law. That's the system. And here's the kicker. Your mind doesn't care what kind of seed you plant. It will grow anything you give it enough attention. Doubt, it'll grow it. Vision, it'll grow that too. What gives life to a seed is not the seed. It's the soil and the nurturing process. And your focus is the fertilizer. So many people say, "I don't want this negative stuff in my life." But they keep replaying the same negative scenarios over and over in their mind. They rehearse their trauma. They meditate on their fear. They hold conversations with failure like it's an old friend. And what they don't realize is, the more they focus on it, the deeper it takes root. And the deeper it's rooted, the harder it is to remove when it's time to grow something better. Your mind doesn't grow what you want. It grows what you feed. You can want success all day long, but if you're feeding your mind with fear, comparison, and self-doubt, don't expect success to show up. You're watering the wrong crop. If you want a harvest of purpose, you have to start planting seeds of intentional thought. Speak life, think abundance, meditate on possibilities, speak to your future more than you complain about your past. See, we often underestimate how powerful one thought can be. One seed, one idea, one belief, that's all it takes to change everything. But that seed must be planted in the right environment. You can't plant faith in toxic soil and expect it to grow. That means you must also protect your mind, your seedbed, from pests. And the pests are negative people, unhealthy environments, media that feeds fear, and conversations that plant doubt. You've got to be intentional about what you allow into your garden. Some of you need to do some weeding. You've let too many wild thoughts grow unchecked, and now they're choking out the good. Go in. Uproot the lies. Pull out the fear. Make room for what God's trying to plant in your life. And here's the good news. No matter what's grown in the past, you can replant your future starting today. You can choose new seeds. You can feed your faith. You can create new roots of power, wisdom, and wealth by changing your thoughts right now. Because your mind is a seedbed. And if you steward it with intention, discipline, and belief, you'll not only change your harvest, you'll transform your whole legacy. Let me tell you something most people don't understand. Focus follows faith. The reason you keep getting pulled into distractions, fear, and frustration is not because you lack focus. It's because your faith is misaligned. See, faith and focus are not separate forces. They work together. Your focus reveals your faith. What you give consistent attention to is what you have unconscious belief in. If you're constantly focused on what's going wrong, guess what? That's not just a mindset problem. It's a faith problem. You're actually exercising faith in your failure. You're believing more in the power of the obstacle than the power of your opportunity. You believe more in the strength of the storm than in the one who called you to walk on water. Faith, focused thinking means you intentionally aim your mind toward what could be, not just what is. It means you elevate your attention to align with your assignment, not your anxiety. That's a discipline. Because the default setting of the world is doubt, distraction, and destruction. And if you don't learn to focus your faith, the world will do it for you. Now here's the key. Faith must be focused to be functional. Faith is not just a feeling, it's a force that requires a target. When your faith is scattered, it's ineffective. But when you focus it like a laser on your vision, your calling, your promise, things begin to move in alignment with your belief. Heaven responds to clarity. God doesn't bless confusion. He blesses order. And faith brings divine order to your focus. That's why the enemy doesn't attack your skill. He attacks your belief. He doesn't care if you go to work every day, start a business, post online, or make moves. If you don't believe in what you're doing, none of it matters, because deep down you'll sabotage your success to match your faith level. So if your faith is in fear, your focus will follow fear. But if your faith is in purpose, your focus will lock in on it like a heat-seeking missile. You attract what you believe in, not just mentally, but spiritually and energetically. You send a signal with your belief. That's why people who walk in faith have a different aura. There's a boldness. There's clarity. There's a peace that doesn't even make sense to others. Because while other folks are focusing on the facts, the faith walker is focused on the truth. And truth always overrides facts. Don't get it twisted. Faith-focused thinking is not denial. It doesn't ignore challenges. It just refuses to make them bigger than the promise. It says, I see the problem, but I focus on the solution. It says, I acknowledge the mountain, but I speak to it. Because what you focus on becomes your frame. And if your mind is framed by fear, everything looks like a threat. But if it's framed by faith, everything looks like an opportunity. Let me say this clearly. Faith is not weak. Faith is not passive. Faith is not for the lazy. It is the most powerful, creative force in the universe. And when it is focused, it turns invisible thoughts into visible outcomes. That business you want to build. It doesn't start with strategy. It starts with faith. That healing you're praying for, it begins with faith. That generational wealth you want to create, it begins with faith. Focused thinking. So stop trying to focus harder without first believing deeper. Fix your faith and your focus will follow. Build your belief and your vision will sharpen. You don't need more time, more money, or more approval. You need to trust what God already put in you and focus your mind like a weapon on the outcome you desire. Energy is not just physical. It's not just about movement or activity. Energy is spiritual. Energy is emotional. Energy is creative. And here's the truth. Your energy always follows your attention. Whatever you give your attention to is where your energy starts flowing. That means attention is the director and energy is the actor. Wherever attention points, energy performs. This is why so many people feel tired, worn out, and drained. Not because they're doing too much, but because they're focusing on the wrong things. They are leaking energy into worry, drama, comparison, regret, and anxiety. Every time you give your attention to things that don't serve your purpose, you're making withdrawals from your energy bank with no return on investment. Now here's the key. You don't need more energy. You need better focus. Most people pray for strength when what they really need is strategy. The Bible says a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. That's not just a spiritual truth. It's a neurological one. Split attention leads to split power. When your mind is divided, your energy is diluted. But when your attention is focused, your energy becomes forceful. It becomes concentrated. And anything that becomes concentrated becomes powerful. This is why focus is so valuable. It multiplies your energy. You could take an average person and put them in a state of total focus, and they will outperform a genius who's distracted. It's not about how much you know. It's about how well you can channel your energy toward what you say matters. Let me break this down real plain. If you give attention to problems, your energy will create more stress. If you give attention to potential, your energy creates solutions. If you give attention to fear, your energy activates hesitation. But if you give attention to vision, your energy activates boldness. See, your energy doesn't originate from your body. It follows the direction of your belief, and belief is revealed through focus. Some of you don't need another course or another coach. You need to reclaim your energy from all the things you've been giving attention to that aren't part of your calling. You're focusing on who hurt you 5 years ago. You're focusing on what they said about you on social media. You're focusing on what went wrong instead of what could go right. And that focus is draining your destiny. You've got to ask yourself daily, where is my attention? Because that's where your energy is flowing. If your attention is on your mission, your energy will rise to meet the demand. But if your attention is on distractions, your energy will start to feel like confusion, fatigue, and frustration. And you'll start thinking something's wrong with you when the real issue is your attention's been hijacked. Let me say this loud and clear, your focus is a filter, but it's also a faucet. When you focus on power, energy flows. When you focus on peace, energy flows. When you focus on progress, energy flows. That's how people build businesses, raise families, launch ministries, and make impact. It's not because they had unlimited time or money. It's because they learned how to channel energy by controlling attention. Stop saying you're overwhelmed and start getting intentional. Energy doesn't come from hype. It comes from alignment. When your attention aligns with your purpose, your energy begins to flow like a river. You become productive, passionate, and powerful, not because you're doing more, but because you're finally focused. So guard your attention like your life depends on it, because it does. Where your attention goes, your energy follows. And where your energy goes, your future grows. The truth that most people miss is this. You don't just chase what you want eventually. What you want starts chasing you. When your focus becomes consistent, clear, and congruent with who you are becoming, you don't just attract things randomly. You begin to magnetize them. Let me break it down. Focus is not passive. It's not a soft intention. It's not a casual glance. True focus is a magnetic force. And when you learn how to maintain that kind of focused thinking, the right people, resources, opportunities, ideas, and even divine connections begin showing up in your life. Why? Because you've tuned your internal frequency to match the outcomes you want. You're not walking around just hoping anymore. You're operating in alignment, and alignment activates attraction. See, most people want success to show up before they start believing. But that's not how it works. The law is, first the focus, then the flow. You must begin by focusing consistently, every day, on the reality you want to create, not the one you're stuck in, not the one other people told you you're limited to, but the one you know deep down you were created for. This doesn't mean you just sit around visualizing all day and hope it drops in your lap. This is not about fantasy. It's about focus that informs action. When you focus on abundance, you move differently. When you focus on growth, you make different choices, and those consistent thoughts, backed by decisions, backed by discipline, create a gravitational pull. Let me put it in practical terms. If you consistently focus on becoming a world-class speaker, your actions start to align. You'll study more, practice more, position yourself differently. You'll attract mentors, clients, or stages that match that vision. Not because it's magic, but because your mind, mouth, and movement are all speaking the same language. That's magnetism. That's when your vision starts pulling in the people, the platforms, and the provision needed to fulfill the purpose. But here's the challenge. Most people never stay focused long enough for the magnet to activate. They change their focus every other day. One day it's faith, the next it's fear. One day it's purpose, the next it's people pleasing. One day it's building, the next it's blaming, and a scattered mind can never generate sustained momentum. You have to lock in, not for a moment, but as a lifestyle. Your focus becomes the instruction to your subconscious mind, into your spirit. And both of those are designed by God to respond to vision. That's why the scripture says, write the vision and make it plain. Why? So that it becomes a clear point of focus, and once it's clear, it begins to command energy, command effort, and eventually command the very results you desire. But here's the part people forget. Focus is not just mental, it's emotional. The intensity of your emotional engagement with your focus determines the speed of what you magnetize. When you focus with belief, you magnetize faster. When you focus with fear, you repel what you want and attract what you don't want. So the question is, what are you magnetizing right now? Look around. Your current life is a mirror of your dominant focus. If you don't like the harvest, check the seed. Check what you've been feeding your mind. Check what you've been giving your attention to when no one's watching. Because what you consistently focus on, you begin to magnetize. Not once, not twice, but daily. And once your internal focus aligns with your external behavior, you become a magnet for the very thing you once had to chase. This is how kings are made. This is how legacies are built, not through force, but through focused intention that transforms you into the person worthy of what you seek. Everything you are experiencing right now in your life, the results, the relationships, the revenue, even the resistance, is a byproduct of your focus, not your potential, not your background, not your environment. Your focus, because what you focus on, you attract. Your mind is not just a storage center, it's a seedbed, and every thought you choose to water becomes a tree that will bear fruit in your life. That's why the enemy wants your mind. He doesn't care about your car, your house, or your money. He wants your attention because attention is the gateway to creation. But when you shift your attention from fear to faith, from distraction to direction, from lack to legacy, you start to think with purpose, you start to act with power, and you start to live with conviction. That's faith, focused thinking. That's where you stop reacting to life and start creating it. And don't forget, your energy follows your attention. If you feel stuck, it's not because you're not capable. It's because you've been feeding the wrong future with your focus. But today is the day you draw the line in the sand and say, no more wasted energy on what doesn't align with my assignment. You are not meant to live at the mercy of your circumstances. You are not designed to chase what you were built to attract. When your focus becomes consistent, your life becomes magnetic. Your thoughts start pulling in resources. Your belief starts opening doors. Your vision begins attracting the very things God already set aside for you. But you've got to lock in. You've got to decide. No more back and forth. No more double-mindedness. You've got to fix your focus. Plant the right seeds. Feed your faith. Channel your energy. And trust that what you focus on with clarity, consistency, and conviction will begin to manifest in your life. Because the world doesn't give you what you deserve. It gives you what you demand through your focus. So as you leave here today, don't just be inspired. Be intentional. Focus with faith. Speak with power. Move with purpose. And watch how the universe, the marketplace, and the kingdom start to respond. Because what you focus on, you attract, and what you attract, you were always meant to receive. Now go become everything you were called to be. God bless you.